what can I do? How can I change my thinking? What kind of person do I need to become so that my life kind of mirrors that from me as an individual? And so that's why it is, I think it's just constantly important to make sure it is that you're listening to good podcasts like this, that you're reading good books, that you're surrounding yourself with better people, because it elevates your level of thinking. And when your thinking is elevated, then there's a whole new world that opens up to you. And whether that new world includes a condo or a plane or a nice watch or a different vacation or a hotel in the Philippines, you can do with that whatever it is that you want. But there's nothing here it is that was made for somebody else that wasn't made for you.
Jeremy, you are a true gentleman. We had some tech difficulties with a tornado on my end last time, and then you did last minute changes. And I know how much you're juggling and how busy you are. So thank you so much, brother. I'm so excited for this one.
Brother Lawrence, I'm excited to be here, man. Looking forward to it. We're going to run it back.
So Jeremy, you're so successful. We were talking a bit about your company as both, you have like a division where you raise capital to invest, and then you're also an advisory on the advisory board. You've allocated over $2 billion, crazy numbers. You've got some huge things going on now. I'd love to start a little bit about just how you see wealth, because I always find it so interesting with successful people like you, and especially because one of the reasons that we resonate with each other, I guess, is because there's a lot of people that are very wealthy at the expense of everything else. And one thing I love about you is you care about wealth and success, but you also care about mentoring other people. You care about your beautiful wife, your 3 kids, your health. You have all these other things. It's not just about the money, but obviously money is still important. So I'd love to maybe kind of start with that if we could.
Cool. So first, thanks for the compliment. And so successful is a relative term. You and I think as successful to some people, maybe just getting started or maybe not even scratching the surface for others, right? And so successful, I think, is relative to everybody, but I appreciate the compliment. I think for me, wealth is kind of like the old, what's that Jerry Maguire movie, right? It's the Quan, right? You got the family, you got all of this kind of thing, right? I think that maybe for me, my perspective of wealth is really that, right? Certainly financial success and probably even more so financial stability. And then financial success is a large part of that, but making a tremendous amount of money, but losing your wife and family in the process, or your health in the process, or having your character questioned in the process. I don't think that's it. And so for me, I think wealth is determined upon on financial stability and success and progress and feeling like it is that I'm winning, feels like it is that I'm showing up for my wife and kids, that I'm proud of myself, that my health is in the right way, and that I never have to do things that are out of alignment with my character for either my time or the type of people it is that I want to do business with. Wealth, I think, is having a lot of those things in balance as your life goes forward. That, for me, is really what wealth looks like. Like, I don't mind being busy. Most people it is that are successful don't mind being busy. You thrive on it. So it's not wealth is a ton of money and I don't have to do anything all day. That would be boring. You know, I want to do things. I want to be involved. I want to have my mind doing push-ups and being creative and forced to think. But I don't want to do that with the wrong people. I don't want to do that at the expense of losing or harming my relationship with my wife or children. So that, to me, I think is kind of what wealth looks like.
Well, I absolutely love that, because you mentioned time, your time being like the time is our ultimate resource, right? I don't think either of us would trade with Warren Buffett, even though he's one of the richest people in the world, because he doesn't have much time left. He's in his 90s now. But I love what you said about the miscommunication or the misconception with a lot of people where they think, I'm miserable, but I got the golden handcuffs, I made pretty good money, so I'm going to keep working to get X amount of money, and then I'll be free, and then I'll be happy. But be happy doing what? Like, you're right. Most people, we want to be engaged. Humans are naturally happiest when we're improving, and we want to be busy. You and I have active minds. Would be miserable if someone just gave us infinite amount of money and we didn't have any goals to strive for. I don't think that's happiness. So I'm so glad you clarified that. What about, I know you did a podcast recently on turning 50. And when I was young, I always thought birthdays were silly. I used to have this philosophy where, you know, the day before I'm 40 is no different from the day I'm 40, which is no different from the day after I'm 40. And then my uncle, who I'm very close to, and he's older and wiser, he said to me, he said, Lawrence, these moments you have, these milestones in life, they're very important to celebrate, because it gives you, when you look back at your life, you're going to remember milestones, and it gives you a chance to kind of calibrate, are you going in the right direction? How far you've come? Take a moment. So ever since I started this conversation, I've always tried really hard when you reach these milestones, whether it's a goal you've been working for with something, or whether it's a birthday or a big nut, maybe a marriage, a number with your number of years married, like take time to celebrate these milestones. But I'd love to talk a little bit about maybe some of the things you've learned now that maybe at 30, your 30-year-old self would have been very surprised to hear you say.
Yeah, I know. And I did a podcast it is recently around turning this is 50, right? And just kind of the perspective and how it is that you frame and how your mind matures and grows up and that kind of thing. And so I had thought about that too, about how do you celebrate milestones, and whether it's a birthday, turning 40, turning 50, whatever that is there, is it worthy of celebrating? And it is, but I think it has the gravity you give it. Like it's 50 is either a celebration of, look at what it is that 50 years of life has brought to, in the degree of wisdom and the relationships and the connections and the friendships it is that have come with that. And let's celebrate getting here and the collection of people that you've brought around you and experience those friendships and relationships and the milestones with your wife and your children and that kind of thing, which is kind of what we did. We had a big 50th really to celebrate that more so than to celebrate me. I think you can also look at that milestone of, I'm almost 50. I'm going to retire. I'm going to be dead soon. It's all downhill from here. It's just right. And so I think those milestones have the gravity or have the weight or have the importance it is that you elect to give them. I do think it is that there's a few things it is, if I was talking to my 30-year-old self, that I would have done better. And some of that would have been to, you've heard that old saying of stop and smell the roses. I don't know if that would be it, but it would definitely be, it's okay to take a day or two for an anniversary, for a birthday, for a special occasion, for something, and shut off the world and just take a few minutes it is to soak in that milestone, that birthday, that wedding anniversary, that whatever that is, and just really revel and celebrate those. Because I can go out and I can spend a couple $1,000 and have a badass dinner with my wife and my kids and a couple of friends or something like that, which is great. You can buy something nice, you can take a trip, you can do those kinds of things, but you really want to relish that time and those experiences more so than that thing, that stuff. I would have done more of that. Also probably would have traveled a little bit more than we did. We vacationed a lot. We didn't travel as much, and there's a difference. So I think those are a couple little things looking back on these little milestones and kind of points in time.
Jerry, can you talk about that? The difference between vacationing and traveling?
Totally. I mean, vacationing for me, and we've been all over Hawaii and Mexico and the Caribbean and all over the place a lot, and that's great. But you are sitting on the beach and somebody at the Ritz is bringing me some fancy, slushy, whatever expensive ass drink while I sit in a hammock or sit on the beach and that kind of thing. And I may be still reading a good book or listening to a good podcast or making sure my fitness routine is there, but you are on holiday, right? You are vacationing, you are recovering, you are doing those kinds of things. The difference in my mind versus vacationing versus traveling is I want to go experience something different. I want to go experience a different city, a different culture, a different place it is that's different than me. And I don't necessarily need to be buying expensive drinks and sitting on the beach and that kind of thing. I want to go and I want to live there for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And I want to see how the people it is in Costa Rica or Panama or Spain or Dubai or whatever it is live and experience that. I am traveling to gather perspective it is that I can bring back to my life rather than to recover from my life while I sit on the beach. That's the difference for me.
Jerry, you just brought back a hilarious memory of when I was in my mid-20s and I had this girlfriend, this ex-girlfriend, and I was trading. I was in the pit trading. I was so exhausted. And I just walked into a travel agent back there. This is fun. You still went to travel agents to book trips. And I said, just get me an all-inclusive somewhere in Dominican Republic it was. And I got there and I was so tired. I remember after a couple of days just sitting around, just eating. It was all you can eat, all you can drink. She said to me, hey, can we maybe go to the city and have a day of just exploring the culture? And then we asked, how far is that drive? And the guy's like, yeah, 4 hours each way. I said, sweetie, you can do whatever you want, but I'm not leaving. Because I was just, like you said, I was so exhausted. I just wanted to recharge. Whereas now looking back, I'm like, yeah, I kind of wish I'd gone. I wish I'd seen a bit more. That trip in particular was very unmemorable. I didn't do anything. So I know exactly what you mean. I'd love to ask your opinion on this. Your kids are a bit older now. I started my family late and my wife's from the Philippines and her dad passed away. So we went for the funeral early this year. And when we were there, I got to meet a lot of her. She had a huge extended family. I met 75 to 100 relatives. And a lot of them she hadn't seen for a long time. And she said they were so warm and kind with my 4-year-old son. So we get home and she said, we do a lot of rehab and development projects in Chicago. And she said, how about this as a goal? She said, we think about buying a dilapidated hotel in the Philippines. We moved there for a few years or at least maybe 6 months at the minimum. So we actually get to live there and immerse our son in the culture. And then we can hire some of my family members to help. And we basically revamp the resort. So we try to make it so there is some financial success, I guess. Obviously, that's the goal. You want to make money and be paid for your time. But it's more for like, imagine that for my son, he gets to reconnect with part of his heritage and we get to do something together involving my family. And I thought, that's so cool. Like trying to get those kind of experiences while your kids are still young. However, my life in Chicago right now, in Indiana, but I work in Chicago, it's still very much tied to my work. So it would take a lot of planning to be able to do that. But I just love the idea of something like that for when my son's having his formative years.
Yeah, without question. So you didn't have your children late. You had your children at the perfect time, right? And your perfect time is different than my perfect time, but your time is perfect for you and your wife and your son. My wife is Filipina as well, by the way.
Oh, no way.
Crazy. That's crazy. So I think the experience it is of you and your wife going back and either spending more time there and having a holiday and kind of getting your wife back around her family and having your son grow up around aunties and uncles and 1,000 of them there, I think is wonderful. You buy a hotel, you do something either way, but spending time there and giving son a perspective outside of the U.S. to where everybody's got a driveway and a basketball goal and a driveway and a basketball goal and a cul-de-sac, like that doesn't exist outside the United States, right? So that will only make your son more rounded, more learned, and have a different, better, and broader perspective going forward. And the reality is you can do anything it is that you want, right? If it becomes important to you, you can organize your life and your time and your schedule and your money and everything else to figure that out if you want to, if it becomes important to you and your wife. So if you can, do. Absolutely.
Well, Jeremy, a lot of successful people. So one of my wealthiest friends, he says comments like, oh, he does okay for himself. He makes $1 million a year. And I have to stop him and say, listen, you're incredibly wealthy. So for you to say that, it shows that you're very out of touch with not just the US, but the US is way more financially successful than the rest of the world. They say if you can afford a Starbucks coffee, you're in the top 1% of the global GDP because most people live, I think there's over 1 billion people that live on $1 a day or something insanely small. So what I was trying to tell him is one of my most successful financially in terms of his career and everything out of all my friends, that he sees himself as poor because he associates with his peer group in the financial world where he's one of the least wealthy. So he's got his $2 million condo in Vail. He wants a $10 million house because he sees these $20 million homes. So I feel like his perspective is getting really warped. And you mentioned that where when you travel outside the US, you get to see that people don't live like the American dream is not normal. It's incredible the level of affluence that so many people have. How do you manage that as a parent? Because you're trying to raise your kids. I think that's one of the hardest struggles with successful people I know is a lot of them came from very humble beginnings and that gave them the drive and the motivation. And then they become very successful because of it. And one of the biggest worries that I hear them talk about is they want to give everything to their kids. So they know if they do, they're going to spoil the kids. So if you work really hard, you want to enjoy the fruits of your labor and you want to live in a beautiful home and you want to have nice vacations and nice standard of living. But at the same time, you've got to be really careful with your kids that they're getting all this luxury without earning it. So I'd love to hear how you and your wife are kind of juggling that.
I mean, I think there's an old saying it is that says you want to give your children enough to do something, but not enough to do nothing. Right? Like I want to give them enough it is that they can start or become or start a business, buy a house, do whatever it is. But I don't want to give them enough it is that they're just sitting around and they're going to the country club all day and have no motivation, right? So you want to give them enough to do something, not enough to do nothing. I think that's one. I think the other thing there too is that we go back to the beginning of this conversation where we talk about so successful. And that again goes back to perspective, right? Is that I don't see anything, your perspective of your buddy that's making $1 million a year and has a $2 million condo, but wants a $10 million condo is your perspective is not wrong and neither is his, right? From where it is that you're at, you're looking at that going, damn, man, I wish I had that guy's problem. And kind of surroundings of perspective going, man, I haven't even started, right? And that goes back to that kind of idea of possibility. And the reality is in my mind is I run into that too. Like we've done okay I definitely feel like it is that I have not begun to be or accomplish or do what it is that I think it is that I'm capable of. And that is not a beating myself up. It's that I know that there's possibilities in me that I haven't scratched yet. I think ultimately for me, I've got a firm belief it is that there's nothing on this earth that is that God created for somebody else that he didn't create for me, right? Like it's not that God created it as this world and this life it is for your buddy that he can have a $2 million condo. But Lawrence, you're not really there yet, buddy, right? Not bullshit, not at all, right? And so it's that idea of how are those people thinking different than me? What do they do? Where is their perspective? And there's a lot of rich kids that are douches that get handed to. And no, I don't want to be like that. But the guy it is who's built his family and struggled and worked 7 days a week, and he's working, and when your buddies are playing golf on the weekends and doing this kind of crap, right? Like it's like that recipe eventually figures itself out. And so what can I do? How can I change my thinking? What kind of person do I need to become so that my life kind of mirrors that from me as an individual? And so that's why it is, I think it's just constantly important to make sure it is that you're listening to good podcasts like this, that you're reading good books, that you're surrounding yourself with better people, because it elevates your level of thinking. And when your thinking is elevated, then there's a whole new world that opens up to you. And whether that new world includes a condo or a plane or a nice watch or a different vacation or a hotel in the Philippines, you can do with that whatever it is that you want. But there's nothing here it is that was made for somebody else that wasn't made for you.
Jeremy, that's beautiful. And for me, I find it very inspiring because if I looked at your bio and I hadn't spoken to you, I wouldn't have thought you'd said what you just said, where you feel like you haven't even scratched the surface of your potential yet. And I think that's really inspiring because you're right. Like there's certain misconceptions we have. When I was young, I thought by the time you get to 50, your life's nearly over. And I'm a few years from 50 myself. And I kind of echo those same sentiments. I feel like I've got massive potential and I've got big dreams. I think I'm going to make it happen. I've got the confidence I will. So I think it's so true. Perspective is everything. And we get to choose our dreams and we get to choose what's possible. And we shouldn't put limits on it. And I think so many people do have limits, whether it was self-imposed by their parents or their childhood. My wife's a therapist, so she loves going back in your youth and kind of see where these limiting beliefs come from. But I feel like everyone to an extent does struggle with that.
Yeah. And they do. I think when I would challenge you and me and everybody listening, it is to the fact it is that as big as you think it is that you're thinking, you're probably not thinking big enough. Right? Because we have a limiting belief it is that says, I'd really love to have the new XYZ car, truck, whatever it is, right? I'd really love to have whatever the hell it is that you want, a new G-Wagon, right? I'd really love to have the new Mercedes, but it's $100,000. I just don't know if that's that big, right? The reality is that a $100,000 car is a nice car. You could get a new Cullinan. Have you ever seen the new Rolls-Royce Cullinan? It's about $425 and it's outrageous. Outrageous. What an unbelievable SUV. It's beautiful, but it's $425. And so what ends up happening though is people just go, you know what? I'll dream to this level because that seems a little bit maybe more in reach rather than dreaming for something it is that seems so out of reach it is that it inspires you and pulls you forward. Because the bigger that dream is, whatever it is, whether it's a car or a house or a vacation or whatever it is that's important to you, right? The bigger that is, the bigger your mind has to expand to be able to include those things. The larger degree of influence and impact you have to have in order for that to be a part of it. And when you limit that, you kind of put a governor on your thinking to a certain degree. And you do it, and so do I, and so do most people listening. And so if you can figure out a way to maybe take that governor off and even expand your thinking a little bit further than that, then you open this world of kind of possibility thinking it is that gets people excited it is to hear and make them want to help you, want to participate, want to get involved in is to be a part of that something it is that's bigger. And that's when the electricity of life and the cool things begin to happen.
It's so interesting. I was just thinking the other day on if I took my mindset today, went back 20 years, how I would do things differently. And of course, there's mistakes that I would avoid like everybody else. But I think the trajectory of my life, I'm very happy with order and the things that I did. I wish I'd been way more aggressive and dreamed bigger right from the beginning. And that's basically what you're saying is because my mind now is open to more possibilities than it was 20 years ago. And so if I could go back, it's not necessarily that I would do massive changes. I would just be way more aggressive in my thinking and my dreaming. and we can all control that. But I guess that's one great thing that we're both going to give to our kids is, I don't know how you were raised. I was raised by my dad was a pilot in the UK, and pilots in England don't get paid very much. It's a middle class life. We had a wonderful life, but he was an employee who never thought bigger. And I just had an inkling of thinking bigger because his brother, my uncle, who also taught me to enjoy those milestones, he was an entrepreneur. He had massive swings in his life and huge success and some failures too. He's the one that taught me to dream big. So I think it's just so important that we do that, not just for our kids, but for everyone that we encounter, is just try to think bigger. Like, yeah, you're right. What is stopping you? And I really love that.
I think most people have the opposite happen in their life, to where it is that you said it is that as I've gotten older, my dreams have gotten bigger. I think what happens to most of us is as we're younger, our dreams are bigger, and then life happens. And so our dreams get smaller so we can adapt or acquiesce to the reality of our circumstance. When you're younger and you're first getting married, it's, we're going to have this, and we're going to build this house, and then we're going to have a lake house, and we're going to have a boat, and we're going to take vacations, we're going to do all these wonderful things with meat and baby. It is going to be great. And then you got this beautiful girl that goes, oh yeah, I want some of that. And then 10 years later, she's like, where's my fucking lake house? Right? Like, what's going on, man? Because life happens. And it's important for all of us, it is, to kind of go back to that and maybe brush off some of the barnacles of life it is that happen over time, it is, and get back to that, to where you're excited about things again, to where you're encouraged. Go to open houses, go see a car, go on a little vacation. If you can't afford to go stay at the Ritz or whatever it is, just go sit in the lobby and have a cup of coffee and just breathe the fresh air and just sit on the nice furniture and just watch people. You need to be around that so you have that level of kind of possibility thinking, it is. And that's what ultimately it is will kind of drive you, inspire you, and give you a little bit of motivation. It is to wake up on those days when you don't feel like it, is to keep going when it is that, dude, I'm just tired, right? Like, you gotta have that, right? So I'd encourage you guys to get back to thinking about that. Like that will help a ton. It really does.
I love that. Jeremy, I heard something the other day, and it kind of applies to the way I see you. If I came to you and I was kind of struggling and I really wanted advice, and I asked what you're doing today, that might not be the best indicator, because you've had 20 years to build this success. So the guy I was talking to, he was saying, what you want to do is you want to ask, what was Jeremy doing and thinking when he was in his early 20s, when you started to build what you have today? And I really love that reframing, because it's right. Like, you and I don't know about you, but I definitely I hustle less now because I hustle in my early 20s. I still work hard, but it's more on my schedule and doing things that I want to do more. So what were you like? Because I know you came from, I think your bio says you had a single mom that was raised you fairly humble beginnings. What was your mindset like? And were you always a big dreamer when you were young?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, so quick, grew up single mom, parents divorced when I was 2, met my dad when I was 12, he died when I was 20. And so kind of father figure in my life was my grandfather. And so really enjoyed that kind of growing up with a different generational leadership it is that was kind of guiding me and talking to me and framing what it is that a man and a husband and a father look like. And so I grew up listening to Nat King Cole and Perry Como and Dean Martin and all this stuff. So when I started dating my wife, she's like, dude, how old are you? Right? It was wild, right? But I think it is that I've always wanted more and always wanted to grow and to do more. And so I think that I had more energy when I was younger, right? Like, I was quick to take a meeting across town, to fly across country, to work 7 days a week, to do all these kinds of things. I had more energy, but I wasn't very smart, right? And so there's certain things it is that happen over time that you gain perspective and wisdom, and that perspective and wisdom allows you to accomplish more by doing less, because you're a little bit wiser. I think that I am more possibility minded now than I was, because my perspective and my exposure to other things have broadened, because I've done a couple of things or two, and that's gotten me into different rooms. It is to where the possibility level of thinking, the aperture expands pretty dramatically. And you can see, that's when I go back to like, yeah, to some people it is, we've done extraordinary. And then when you get in certain rooms, you're like, God, man, I haven't even scratched the surface. And so there's still lots to do.
One thing, when you talk about those different rooms, I know exactly what you mean. There's a room you could be in where everyone's looking at you to be the mentor because they want to get half the success you have. And then there's other rooms where you're blown away by some of the things people have done. One thing that I've found, and I'd love to hear if you share these views, Jeremy, is there's people that might be more successful in one area of life. And a lot of time, money is the easiest metric, right? Wealth and zeros in the bank account and net worth. But in terms of just you having a long, happy marriage with 3 lovely kids, and you look in great shape, you obviously care about your health, and you are successful financially, and you have a business that you love and nice your fire and you're growing, I think that's really rare. And I think there's most people that maybe are a lot more successful in the financial area of their life, I've noticed they seem to have let a lot of those other areas go. It's very rare when someone, I come from the martial arts background, so I always say, you don't want to be a black belt in jiu-jitsu, you want to be a black belt in life. And that's rare. A lot of people are black belts in net worth, but they're white belts in life in many ways. So that's one of the reasons I really respect you. And I think that you're a real role model is because you're trying to, they call it, round out the spokes of your wheel. You don't just want to be very successful. You're not shooting for fame and money at the expense of everything else. You want it all. And that should be the goal for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, and it should. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with wanting it all. And you're right. The majority of people have this kind of barometer of how it is that they measure success by how many zeros and commas it is that you have in your checkbook. And that is the easiest, relatively superficial way it is to say, okay, that person, man or woman, whoever that is successful. And so as you see this new kind of influencer and social kind of community it is that's become prevalent, to where you have all these talking heads talking about whatever they're talking about, a lot of these guys have made a ton of money, which is great. Right. And so you're like, you need to take some of this stuff with a grain of salt. Like, I know plenty of people that have made plenty of money, but I don't want their marriage. I know guys that were on the cover of magazines and have their own jets. And you look at them and you're like, damn, that's astonishing. But that girl he's having lunch with is not his wife. That's weird. Or they don't have a relationship with their kids. Or, I mean, you pick, right? And so it's really important to where it is that you're finding a voice it is that you want to listen to, emulate, and otherwise to kind of gather some perspective above and beyond kind of what's on the surface, right? There's this veneer it is that seems to be happening. There's this kind of veil it is that you're putting whipped cream on dog shit and trying to sell it, right? You're coming up with something it is that says, listen to me because I'm important and it all figured out and you should go here and do all these kinds of things. But the underneath of that stuff, the Lambo is rented. His wife really doesn't like him. His kids are fucking retarded. And he's taking pictures in his jet that never leaves the tarmac. Dude, come on. You don't want that. And so for me, it was important that as we were building the business and as we were growing and as we were continuing to hopefully have more of an impact and recognize the things in life it is that we have and appreciate those things, I didn't want to do that while sacrificing my relationship. I didn't want to do that while not having a good relationship with my boys and mentoring and loving on and growing my daughter. I didn't want to do that without making sure it is that I wasn't protecting the relationship it is with my parents, or without having impact on friends, without making sure it is that I'm making a dent for men in the community and showing up and that kind of thing, right? Like there's a lot more to what defines success than just money. Money's the easy part.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. Jeremy, what are some of the sources of inspiration for you in terms of people? I think I can see David Goggins' book behind you on the bookshelf. I love listening to clips of him when I don't want to work out and I'm feeling lazy and I need a few minutes of someone yelling at me and then I put my running shoes on and go out the door. But
you're going to carry the boat on, right? Ricky Goggins will get you when you don't want him.
I feel like sometimes I need that kick up the butt. But who do you look at to inspire you? Are there some people recently have given you some inspiration?
Yeah, it's different because this is weird to say because I don't feel like I have peers. And I don't mean that from an arrogant standpoint, meaning it is that I'm so great there's nobody at my level. That's not at all what I mean. But I haven't really found folks it is to associate with. I may love somebody it is because I really like their marriage, but I don't like their business or their financial success or otherwise. And so when I'm looking to things it is, I think everybody in their life, myself included, you and your listeners included, we're looking for some voice it is that we can look to, lean to, learn from. It is that gives us inspiration, right? And so for me, one of the things about being a strong person and being a patriot and being excited about the United States and standing up and having a backbone, I really like listening to Andy Frisella. Like I like Frisella for what it is that he's doing. When it is I want to get better and get stronger in my faith and make sure that my alignment is there and that I'm living a godly life and showing up as a man, I listen to Mark Driscoll, right? And as a pastor, really like him. I like Ed Milet for what it is that he's doing. And so when I look to these people, I'm looking to kind of gain little pockets and nuggets of thought and inspiration. There it is that'll hopefully fill my cup a little bit so I can make sure that when there's a time or opportunity it is for me to pour out in others, my cup's full.
So you're looking for a specialist in a certain area for you to work on, as opposed to a general, like you said, like a peer that you're looking at everything they're doing.
Yeah, a little bit, because I haven't really, like, even for the folks it is that I would look to for guidance on my own. Let me see. I don't feel like it is that I have people. I feel like I'm the people that other people have. That seems to be my life. And I do not look at that as a burden, but certainly as an extraordinary blessing. But for me, there are times to where I need something strong to lean on to, that I need to go somewhere to make sure it is that I'm keeping my mind right, making decisions right, filling my cup, making sure it is that I'm strong. And I have not found somebody in 3D that I can sit down with it is that has everything in life it is that I want. I've got a dear friend of mine that I love beyond measure, one of my best friends for 25 years, and he's built an extraordinary business like mine and made well into the 9 digits and has the houses and has the planes and all that other kind of stuff. He's got a pretty good marriage. He's got a great relationship it is with his kids, but he doesn't have a very good faith. And so I want to listen to him some, but I take it with a salt.
Out of curiosity, Jeremy, that one friend you told me, would you say he's happy?
As happy as he thinks he can be. I think it is that there's something it is that you're missing in life, whether it is that you know it or not, that comes from having a strong faith. And I think for him and maybe people like him, it goes back to that thing of, I didn't know I had a headache until the pain stopped. Because then when the pain stops, you're like, this is how this feels. Wow, this does feel good, right? I didn't know that because I've been living a different way. I think it is for him. I think that is probably the only thing it is missing in his life. It is that he would be a 10 out of 10. And because of that, there's only so much it is that I can share with him, or there's only so much it is that I take from his perspective without giving a little asterisk at the bottom of it. And so I would imagine all of us are kind of like that when we look to a degree of mentorship. And so when I try to fill that other side of the void, right? Like your mentor and where it is that you're getting filled doesn't have to be from me just sitting down with one of my buddies and having a drink or a cigar and trying to get filled up. I can get that degree of mentorship by opening a book, by listening to a podcast, by going to a leadership seminar, by just gaining little bits and bites and kind of a buffet type approach to that. It is that'll hopefully fill me up that I can go and I can give. For me, I am trying my best it is to create a life to where it is that a lot of those things, to where my spiritual life is strong, my relationship with my wife and my children are worthy of emulation, that I'm building a business that is successful beyond me. And so when there's opportunities, it is for me to coach or counsel or be friends or uplift or breathe life into somebody as they're going through their struggles, is that we have a well-rounded basis to provide that guidance from. And that's what I kind of wake up and try to do every day.
Yeah, that's seriously good. That was the reason I asked, Jeremy, is because I know that you do a lot of mentoring on top of everything else. Like you are trying to, I love that approach of, I don't want to be the only successful guy. I want to be a rising tide lifts all boats. I want, or me personally, and it sounds like the same for you, I want all the people that I'm close to and I care about to be very happy and successful and fulfilled and everything. So I don't just want to be the only one where like, yeah, I've got it all and everyone else is struggling with different things.
Right.
I want to have everybody. But when you do that, when you're as busy as you and you're juggling so many different things in your life, then you need to also take the time to kind of charge yourself, right? So your energy is good. I know last time when we had the terrible connection, you were talking a little bit about some of the daily things you do. And I think I always find that such an interesting thing is, what are some of the daily things you do to make sure you're your best self in all those areas of your life that you're showing up?
So, I mean, first, I have a good gym habit, right? I'm in the gym 6 days a week. Outside of the fact that health has become, I think, at the forefront of more people's mind over the last 10 years or so, right? For me, over the last several years, 3 or 4 years, it is having a very good fitness routine has become important, right? And so for me, that's good for my own mental state. So you can kind of work out the demons of the day, right? And get that kind of sweat and that tough and that hard out of the way. I think that's been a big thing for me. It is. And so the days it is that I don't go to the gym or that I don't get active or that I don't get a good sweat on, the day feels kind of weird, right? I usually get a couple hours of podcasts or books in a day, whether that's through the gym, between meetings, driving down the road, one thing or another. I try to make sure it is that I'm kind of getting good stuff in my brain every day. The other thing it is that I try to find during the day, but I don't find it every day, but at least a few days a week, is just quiet, as just time of solitude. And for me, that's either going for a drive by myself and just having windshield time, music or no music, but that is cathartic for me. I also like time on kind of my back porch with just myself and a cigar and a whiskey and just getting my thoughts together, making sure it is that I'm having some quiet. And that becomes kind of like that time in the shower, right? To where it is that you've got an external degree of stimulus, whether it's the hot water or the cigar or the bourbon or whatever it is, but there's a removal of everything else, of distractions from your phone or your wife or your kids or your business or people calling or anything else it is, to where your mind can relax. And when your mind relaxes, just like in the shower, when your mind relaxes, it gives space for ideas. It gives space to problem solve. It gives space. That's why everybody's talking about this. You get out of the shower and you're like, oh, what a great idea. And then you're like, what was I going to do again? Right? Because the world gets in the way, right? Like, it's so important it is to make sure that you are having that time as a man free from distractions, to where you can go and just kind of process in quiet either what's going on, what types of problems you're solving, or the path it is that you're on. Are you in alignment? Are you on course? Are you out of direction? And what you need to do to correct that. That's critical.
When I was younger, I used to think I couldn't understand why I loved taking trips. And because I always felt like I upgraded my thinking when I took a vacation. And a lot of it was due to the fact that on a plane, I wouldn't get Wi-Fi and it would force me to read for a few hours where I'm completely focused. And it's so hard, especially when you have success and responsibilities. It's very rare to get those times for yourself. You have to, like you're saying, guard it, treasure it at all costs, because that was the one thing. I'd be in a nice resort somewhere and with my wife, and I would leave my phone in the hotel room and get a few hours with a book and maybe start after an hour or two. Suddenly we'll write down goals and dreams and plans, because finally my mind can just be with its own thoughts and as opposed to constant updates and people needing things. And it's really hard to be. It's such a commodity to be bored. Like, not bored, but we're never bored now. There's always 20 things we can do. So I love the fact that you said both those things. You said you always, every day, you're giving yourself the nourishment and the inspiration from rich books and great podcasts, but you're also spending the time to get that quiet time. I just know for myself, that's something that I just realized recently. I need this so much, and I'm so much happier when I have it.
Yeah. And my wife has become more aware of that. I think oftentimes maybe couples, or if you're young in your marriage or young in your relationship, and I don't mean young of age, young in maturity, is that you don't recognize the fact that each of you needs a little time to yourself, because you are a married couple, but you're also individuals, and the better the individual, the better the couple. And so, like, my wife knows that if it's just kind of quiet time and I'm like, I'm gonna have a little time. She's awesome. She'll come out, make sure it is that I got what it is that I need. She'll walk by, give me a little wink or something on the back porch or something, just to say, I know you're having your time and I recognize it and I love you and I hope you have a good time and I can't wait to talk to you when you get back. And I try to do the same thing it is for her. So here's the thing it is for guys. Don't feel guilty being selfish with that. You need that, because the better that time is for you of healing kind of your mental space, the better you can show up for her and your kids and your business and everything else. Like, it's really important.
So glad you said that. I remember when she became pregnant, we said, we're not going to be those parents that, I'm going to put my kid before everything, because we're going to be better parents by making sure that we both do things that make us the best selves. And then we both focus on our marriage. And then naturally, we're going to be better parents by doing that. Yeah, I absolutely love that. Jeremy, I mean, you've been married a long time. I just had my sixth year anniversary. I would love for you to tell me a little bit, give me some tips on a successful marriage, because like you said, so many people that are successful are on their second or third marriage. relationships are tough. And I think I see a lot of my single friends who say they want what I have, but they think that if I can just get the right girl, I can tick the box and I'll be done with it. And it's not like that. Even the best relationships where you're very compatible still requires nurturing, just like everything else in your life. And you can be in the best shape, but if you don't work out for 3 months, your fitness is going to go to shit, basically. And it's the same with your marriage. Keep working on it. Your friends too, friendships, everything needs nurturing. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what you've learned after, I think you've had nearly 30 years of marriage. Is that right?
Nearly 30 years. So we've been together a little bit better than 30 years. We have our 29th wedding anniversary coming up here in a couple of months.
That's incredible.
And so, yeah, I mean, my wife is incredible. And I do not know anybody that has a marriage that comes close to ours. I really don't. And again, no arrogance or egotism in that, but I do not know anybody that has a marriage like ours. And I don't know if I know anybody who knows somebody who has the marriage that we have. It's extraordinary. But the reality is that took a lot of time. And so we spent 20 years figuring out all the shit it is that doesn't work, that you're not supposed to do, right? And now that we got all that out of the way, we've figured out how to do things. And I say that mostly tongue in cheek, but the reality is that marriage is difficult and life happens around your marriage, which makes it more difficult. You guys and girls are fundamentally different. I think we joked about this last time. It's like take a dog and a cat, still lock them in the bathroom and say, I'll see you in a few hours. You guys get along. When you come back and you're like, oh, what do you mean you guys are fighting? Right? Like it's just the most different things in the world. It is for how it is that you look at things and how you process emotions and on. And I think for us, the key for us that we figured out over time is that we came first and everything else came second. So many people, I think, either prioritize their kids or they prioritize their job. They prioritize friends or whatever it is that it happens to be. Girls having girls' weekend. Stupid. Guys with all the fantasy football shit and going to the golf course on the weekends. Stupid. It's ridiculous. And every guy will justify it, but you're an idiot. You just are, right? If you're really not prioritizing the marriage first and the relationship it is with your wife first, none of that other stuff matters. They end up being escapes because you don't want to deal with what you actually need to deal with to make sure it is that relationship with your wife is there. Like I can do anything it is that I want, right? And I don't, again, that's not, I'm going to do anything it is that I want, but it means it is that I don't feel guilty if I want to go out tonight it is, and I want to go have cocktails and a cigar with my buddies and stay there till 11 o'clock. You know why? Because all day today, all day yesterday, the day before, the weekend before, all I did was sew into my wife and children, right? And so when it's time it is away, they miss me and I miss them, but I get to go celebrate and do something. Same thing for my wife. My wife serves me all the time it is. So if she needs a day it is, and she wants to go out with her friends or go shopping or go spoil my daughter or take whatever it is, she doesn't feel guilty because, right, she's spending all her time taking care of me and taking care of our kids and supporting us and that kind of thing. That's the stuff it is that's missing. I think the biggest thing it is that I would tell you as maybe somebody that's a little bit further down the path than you, one of the key things that my wife and I figured out is that at some point you're going to be tired or your wife's going to be tired. At some point you're going to want to quit or want to wonder what it's like it is to, maybe we didn't get married or what if we got separated or all these kinds of things, right? You don't want to quit on the same day. And we got to a point to where it is that we got past that in our life because of the emotional ups and downs of life that were affecting us, is that it wasn't us. And so what we needed to get to as a couple is reminding ourselves that no matter what else was going on, is that I chose her and I continue to choose her every day. Doesn't matter what happens in business, up, down, make money, lose money. Otherwise, it doesn't matter where we live. It doesn't matter the jobs. It doesn't matter if I'm sick. It doesn't matter if she's sick. I continue to show up and choose her and she chooses me. And if you can set that out as a priority, the job really doesn't matter. You made money, you lost money, you got fired, you got a new job, you got transferred, kids get sick, kids get hurt, parents get sick, somebody passes away, who cares? It's just life. But constantly show up and make sure it is that you're choosing your wife every day and reminding her of that. And show up. And the rest of the stuff just kind of becomes not so important.
That's so interesting, Jim. I remember hearing someone saying the most important factor in determining if a marriage will work is that you want it to work. And I remember when I heard it, I was like, that doesn't really make sense, but it makes complete sense. It's what you're saying. Remind yourself that you chose to be together. And I think that's, this seems simple, but there's a lot of wisdom in that.
Yeah.
What about parents being parents? You were pretty young parents, I think. I really appreciate what you said about, we both got married, had families at the perfect time for us. There's pros and cons to being younger parents versus older parents. But what have you learned about just parenting? You have 2 boys and your daughter. I'm sure it's very different. I can only speak for being a boy dad. We're hoping a girl's coming soon, fingers crossed. But I guess in terms of parenting, I think the biggest thing for me that I realized from maybe 5 years ago to today is I didn't know what I didn't know. And I saw being a parent as this negative anchor around my foot, stopping me from being selfish in the pursuit of my goals. Not selfish. I've always been a fairly nice guy, but just I've been very doggedly pursuing things. I saw being a parent as this responsibility where I couldn't fulfill my potential in these other things. What I didn't realize is I didn't know what I didn't know. Think about that sentence all the time because there's so much wisdom there and power. I didn't know that I'm 10 times happier today than I was 10 years ago, even though 10 years ago, I was at the peak of my physical fitness and I thought, my life's going to be downhill from here. But he gives me so much happiness that I didn't even know was possible. But he's only 4. So I'm sure you've got you're laughing thinking about all the surprises that I have coming as he gets older and hopefully more kids too. But how's the journey of parenting been for you?
The journey of parenting is awesome. It's an ever evolving because the father it is that you are today when he's 4 is going to be different than the one when he's 10 versus when he's 16 versus when he's 20 and so on and so forth, right? You're a different father. The level of how it is that you love and lead is going to change and evolve over time. No dissimilar to how it is with your wife, right? When you guys as newlyweds versus being married 5 years or 10 years or 20 years and beyond, how it is that you love, lead, and nurture your wife is going to grow over time. I think for me, children, when we first had our kids, I was really excited about having children. My wife always wanted to have children. So did I. We always wanted to be a family. We have 3 kids. We thought that we wanted 4 or 5. We wished that we would have had maybe one more. But that blessing there was extraordinary. When I was young, though, as much as it was a blessing to me, I let anxiety kind of overcome me about the responsibility that I had as a father, about making sure that there was money, that I was working to get ahead, that I was working every second of every day, and that I was taking this meeting and doing this thing and all these other kinds of things. And I think I let myself get out of balance when I was younger, when the kids were younger, because my wife was running that. She was taking care of that. And I'd show up exhausted at the end of the day and was giving my best to everybody else and not to. I was guilty of that for a long time. And I think that's probably not so uncommon. I still did all the coaching the soccer team and doing all that kind of stuff and showing up to all the stupid plays that I didn't want to go to. I think partially because I wanted to not be my dad. And I think more so on the fact it is that I didn't want my wife to be the wife it is that showed up on all those events with the absent husband and the absent father, because we've all seen that too. What I didn't do is I didn't give enough time to making sure it is that I sat down and played Legos without guilt, or that I showed up to support and back up my wife early on and allowed her to take a mom break, to allow me to maybe play Mr. Mom for a night or something like that, to just give her I got better at that over time, but it took me a while to figure that out. So for young dads, and not young age, young in the dadhood, I would make sure it is that you're celebrating those things. It's not going to matter whether it is that you call that guy back in 5 minutes or 3 hours, or call him back tomorrow. Tell him to fuck off. Go play Legos with your kid, right? Like it's, you'll find it is that on the other end of that, when you say no, or when you say, hey, I'm booked today, I'm booked tonight, I can't, but I'm happy to do Friday, Thursday, whatever it is, and do that. You don't have to give an excuse. Like, learn to say no. It is without justifying the no. But when you do that, you'll find it is that people will respect your time a little bit further because you're having a boundary there. Mm-hmm. And then when you have that boundary and know that that's going to be taken care of, then you're feeling a little less guilty while you're playing Lego. So it took me a while to.
When you talk about feeling guilty, you were guilty that you were letting your work duty slip. Is that what you mean?
I was playing Legos with my kid, but I wasn't thinking about my kid. I was thinking about, okay, another 15 minutes and I can call that guy. All right, great. Two more Legos, buddy. One more time. Okay, 5 more pitches. Right. Yeah, it was that. So you're there. Kinda.
God, Jeremy,
Right?
that speaks to me. That's exactly what I struggle with. I can leave the phone upstairs. I go to his playroom in the basement. We're having a great time. And then things are popping up in my head. Oh, I got to do this. I got to do that. And it's really hard to turn the work brain off when I'm with him. And I know exactly what you mean. That's a real.
It's a delicate balance because it's okay to still have a little bit of work brain going on, but do something to where you're like, okay, talk to your wife and say, hey, honey, I'm going to go out with kiddo and we're going to do this for 30 minutes or an hour or whatever it is, right? And be in that hour, everything it is that you got, so you can show up to them and do the same thing it is with your wife. So that way it is when you go back to work, right? You're not feeling guilty about not hanging out with your son. And while you're with your son, you're not feeling guilty about not going to work. All the candy, popcorn, and soda we can do in an hour, right? All the baseball, all the Legos, all the riding bikes, all the whatever it is, right? And then I'm going to get back in, I'm going to work. And when I do that, then I'm feeling less guilty on both sides. It's not perfect. Everybody's going to have to figure out how it works for them. But again, I think we talked about this last time, is like for dads out there, the reality, brother, is you're going to screw up, right? You're going to stay late at work when it is that you shouldn't have. You're going to take a meeting that you shouldn't have. You're going to have a crossword with your wife. You're going to have a crossword with your kid, and you're going to feel like shit. And trust me, 10 years later, there's going to be 4 or 5 things that you're still going to regret that hurt your feeling. That's all right. Kobe missed a couple of shots here and there. So did MJ, right? Like even the best at what it is that they're doing is not perfect. And neither will you be, and neither will I. I still remember things from my kids growing up, but is that I feel bad about that I don't even know if they remember.
That's right.
It's all right. You just keep moving on and give yourself a little bit of grace in that process.
Last thing I wanted to ask you, I'm a huge fan of the intellectual Naval Ravikant, and he has this wonderful saying. He's a super successful guy financially, and he says, a healthy body, a calm mind, and a loving family, they can't be bought. They have to be earned. And when you're talking that quote, these are all the things you're saying. I just love that. It's like you and I both want the things that can be bought, that the success and the enjoyment of building things, that kind of intellectual challenge. But at the same time, we're trying to prioritize the things that can't be bought. It's so rare to have both together. I think that
is a perfect saying and very true.
Do you feel like you have, because I know the mentoring is a big thing for you and giving back. Do you feel like you kind of in the arc of a successful life, obviously I'm sure you weren't thinking about mentoring when you're in your mid 20s and late 20s and young family and you're trying to grow. But as you get to a certain amount of success, you think you kind of almost owe it to society to start giving back and inspiring other people?
I think, anybody it is who has or done, I think you're going to get attention from people that is wanting to know how you figured that out. And whether that's a business, financial success, marriage, whatever it is, right? Like people want to learn from somebody it is that's done something. No, I never had any thoughts or inclination it is that I would be somebody it is that people looked. This whole thing it is for this kind of men's group and mentorship and kind of little small group leadership kind of came by accident. Like it wasn't planned. It wasn't on purpose. I had put a couple of just kind of men's nights together in Seattle when we were living there to just get a group of guys that is together, 8 or 10 guys come over, good dinner, good whiskey, good music, good cigars, sit down, have some fellowship. If you want to talk, if you want to share, if you want to wrestle with some problems, cool, we can do that. If you don't want to talk to anybody and you just want to sit and fuck off by the fire and listen to music, cool, go do that. But there needed to be a place to where it is that you could maybe take off your armor and kind of rest and recover from the week and just kind of get fed. Did that a bunch of times in Seattle. When I got down to Arizona, I've done that a couple of times. And then a few months back, decided to just kind of post about it for some reason. No explanation, not really thinking, just, hey, we did this recently and kind of here was the response. And it was pretty cool. Those posts on LinkedIn got like 150,000 views and responses. And I was like, weird. And so did it a couple months later, posted again about it, got the same kind of thing. And now there's this like giant list of men it is that are saying, hey, can I come to drinks at Jeremy's house? And so I started thinking, there's something like, what's going on here? There's something here. And so you're finding it is that men across the country are looking for some place it is to where they can be real and engaged and authentic and be led and be fed it is without judgment about these big things it is that they're wrestling with in their life, whether it's fatherhood or showing up for their wives or wrestling with the business or wrestling with their faith or one thing or another. But you want to be strong, but have an environment to feel vulnerable. It is to where you're not going to get stabbed in the back, get looked at, get whatever, to where other strong men it is can kind of act as that degree of fellowship and help you kind of move through those things. And I haven't really seen that. And so there's a dent here it is that we're beginning to make. It is that if you asked me a year ago, was the furthest thing.
That's so beautiful. I really, the older I get, the more I appreciate the need for men to be around other men. And I realized that I've been so lucky because when I moved to Chicago, I was trading in the Chicago option pits for 10 years. And it was always one or two females in there, but it was mainly 98% men. And it was just very physically close proximity, and you're all competing against each other. But there was this camaraderie and this brotherhood in there that was beautiful. And then I realized that when I was fighting too, I'd go in the gym and we would try and kill each other. But the kind of camaraderie and love and respect you get from that was just so powerful. Like the bonds you create are lifelong bonds. And I realized how lucky I was to have that. And so many people don't have that. And that's actually one of the reasons that I love jiu-jitsu now, is because I'm 45 and I've retired from competing. So for me, I don't go there with any goal of doing anything other than enriching my mind and seeing my friends. I get that same kind of camaraderie from jiu-jitsu. But when I started jiu-jitsu, it was because I wanted to compete and I wanted to fight and I was trying to learn how to do something on a sporting level. And now 20 years later, I'm doing the same thing, but I'm getting there's a completely different reason why I'm going there. And I'm getting a completely different reason from it that's enriching my life no end. And I think we're so lucky we have. And there's so many just that they're kind of crying out for that. And like you said, the response you're getting is proof of that. So I just think that's really beautiful. It's just another feather in your bow of these great things you're doing, Jeremy.
We'll see, man. I hope so.
Well, this has been such a pleasure. I really appreciate you. I'll put a link to your website, and I really hope we can do part 2 soon, Jeremy, because you're a class act. And for me, this podcast has been such a blessing as well, because we live in such a distracted world and I get to connect with you, and I'm inspired now. You've inspired me definitely to think bigger and really think about those self-imposed limitations that I was putting on myself. And I hope to be where you are in terms of my relationship with my wife, hopefully more kids down the road as well. I want to be a great father like you. So I really appreciate us getting connected, because we're similar in ages, but you're a lot longer down the road in these areas of my life that I look up to you for. So thank you so much.
Very kind, my friend. I look forward to a good friendship for a long time. That sounds great, buddy. Thank you.